Welcome to Leadership and Life Chat with your hosts, me, Becky Ames.
And me, Mark Curtis. In each episode, we'll be illustrating how success in leadership is inextricably linked with success in life.
Whether it's leadership in business, society, family or friends, we're all leaders.
Using our experiences and a range of expert guests, we'll share secrets to boosting your health, wealth and self.
So let's get on with the show.
Becky, I'm really not sure whether we should do this show this week because the thought I had was, I don't know, it's on self-doubt. What do you think?
Are you doubting yourself again?
Did you like what I did there? No, honestly,
Seamless.
listeners, this week we are going to do a show on self-doubt. It's something which comes up time and time again. It's something we've all suffered from. No one is exempt from this. So we thought it'd be a really good idea to take a bit of a dive into maybe some of the key areas around self-doubt. So are you with me on this one, Becky?
I am definitely with you on this one. We've all been there and probably continue to be throughout our lives in lots of ways, aren't we?
Yeah, and it manifests itself in so many different ways. We could spend hours talking about this one, Becky, and we could share lots of personal stories. I have no doubt about that. But I thought what we could do today is we could perhaps try and splice it into three key areas, which I think I see this quite a lot within myself and the other people around me and my team as well. So if we look at self-doubt, normally I would say it's driven by fears. You know, the fears come in and that drives the self-doubt. So there's three fears I'd perhaps like us to focus on today and talk around and share our experiences and leave some top tips for the listeners. And those three, Becky, are the fear of failure. That's the first one I'd like us to have a little chat about. The second one is the fear of success, which, you know, at first sight, people think, why would there be a fear of success? But I think there's a lot with this, and we'll get into that one. And the final one is the fear of judgment of others. So are you happy with those three?
Well, yeah, I think so. Happy maybe. We could be going into some pretty deep stuff here, but yeah, let's do it. It'll be good.
Okay, excellent. Let's crack on with it then. So let's start off with the fear of failure.
Yeah, so massive one, isn't it, for everyone at every stage of their career, in their lives. I think the fear of failure is something that's inherent in all of us, and it's how we manage it, isn't it? And really understanding why we have that fear to stop it getting to the point of self-doubt. But I think naturally it's going to get there for some of us at some stages. For me, it's often about flipping it and saying, you know, actually, what's gone right? And rather than what could go wrong. But it's a massive thing. It keeps people awake at night, I'm sure. It certainly has done for me in the past.
Yeah, and this is definitely something which is hardwired into us. We've touched on this before on the show in the past. For me, fear of failure is actually inherently linked to survival. And if you go back to our ancestral roots, 2 million years ago when we started to get on two legs, everything was about how do we stay alive. It's like there was a lot of threats out there. We were prey. Through most of human evolution, we were prey as much as predator. It's only really in modern times that we are almost Z apex predators. But up until that point, we've had to keep an eye on what's going on, and almost fear of failure meant if we failed, it meant we died, and then we couldn't pass on our genes to the next generation. So this stuff for me is absolutely hardwired into it. So I don't think any of us should give ourselves a hard time for being scared of failure, because I think it's hardwired into our genes. Equally, we have to kind of take a step back and say, do you know what? Most of this failure that we experience in modern society is unlikely to kill us. The stress of worrying about it is probably the biggest danger to us, or maybe the unhealthy behaviours it might drive. But the actual failure itself, we can put that into context. It feels massive at the time, doesn't it? You transport yourself back, Becky, to, 1982, and you're about to do a spelling test in your class. Your palms are probably getting sweaty now thinking about it. The teacher's about to call out some words that you've got to spell and then pass to the person sitting beside you to check. And actually you only got 8 out of 10, and at school you'd be going, that's a failure because I got 2 wrong, So this stuff has happened since we were kids probably, and we still look at the small failures. But actually those 2 words you didn't spell correctly in your spelling test, what impact have they had on your life?
Nothing. And equally, you got 8 right.
And you got 8 right, absolutely.
Flip it the other way. I think, it is about getting in context, isn't it? we often say in what we do, it's not life and death. It's important, absolutely, but it's not life and death. And if you don't try things and allow yourself the chance to fail, then we don't progress, we don't grow, we don't move forwards, do we? So
No.
you do have to overcome that fear. I think sometimes a bit of fear of failure is actually a positive thing. I think it drives us in lots of ways if we can use it positively, to actually go, okay, this might not work, but let's give it a go. And
Yeah.
how we message that to the team as well is really important, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's, there's a couple of things which come into my head there. The first one is, and I think we might have touched on this one before, but Michael Jordan, the probably not even arguably the best basketball player of all time, missed 50% of the shots that he took in his professional career. We've mentioned that on the podcast before because I think it's a great stat. Here's the most successful basketball player of all time, even appeared in a Hollywood movie along with some cartoon characters. That's how successful he was. And he missed 50% of the shots he took. And I think I'm sure I heard him talk about it once, where in his early career he had the chance to take a match-winning shot and he passed it over to somebody else to take the shot. And for him, that was a far bigger failure than the shots he missed. If he'd have taken the shot and missed it, that wouldn't have been failure. That's just like, that's part of like learning and developing your skill set. But not taking the shot is the failure. And and I think we can all think about times in our life where we've passed the proverbial basketball over to somebody else because of our fear of failure, which has been built into us. So we feel momentarily relieved, but then when we get to bed that night, we then start thinking, oh, why didn't I do it? I regret, and regrets are just the worst thing ever, aren't they? I try and live life with no regrets because what is the point? But there's certain things where your subconscious presents it to you like years later and you still have a regret thinking, why did I not do it? I can't think of many things I thought, why did I do it? But I can certainly think of things of why did I not do it? And it was ultimately because of the fear of failure.
Absolutely. And you kick yourself, don't you, afterwards? You're like, that was an opportunity missed. It might have gone wrong. It might have gone right. Who knew? But if I didn't do it, then I'm never going to know. And I think it's in our heads, we do this to ourselves, don't we? It's that self-talk thing. We talk ourselves out of things and actually give it a go. Talk yourself into it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, and you're right. What we're probably doing, most of us, is we're running scenarios in our head, and we're thinking, okay, so this is going to happen, and then this will happen, and then that will happen, and oh my God, it's gone wrong. So we run these scenarios, and again, because of the hard wiring in us around survival, I would pretty much guarantee that most people listening, 80% of the scenarios they run in their heads end up with a negative outcome. So how often do we run a scenario where we have a successful outcome? And I would guess not many times. So one of the things is like no one knows what the future holds. We don't know what the next 10 seconds, 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 years are going to hold. So we don't know what the outcome is going to be. All we're doing is making a guess. And we're erring on the side of caution. We're going, it's going to be a bad outcome. But coming back to the thing we've talked about a lot before, which is, the brain, the subconscious can't tell the difference between real and fantasy. If we're telling our subconscious a story, which is, and it goes wrong, then we get all of the visceral feel is the same as if it was actually happening. It's real to us. So why don't we just, one of the things we can all do, and this comes back, to, I suppose, to visualization, really, why not also run a positive scenario? So you do the auto thing almost, which is this happens, and it's failed. Actually, then take control of that and run a positive vision of it going right. Because it's 50-50. It's a flick of a coin. It could be good, it could be bad. So it could just as easily be good as it could be bad. You could succeed as well as you could fail. So we could run those scenarios in our head as well. Make those pictures real. And again, we've definitely talked about this before, but it's worth bringing in, which is fear and excitement. The physiological impact on our body, how we feel are exactly the same. So increased heart rate, sweaty palms, all of those psychological impacts, physiological impacts we have of fear and excitement are exactly the same. So one of the things you can actually do to yourself is, and it's difficult to lie to yourself, I know that, because when you're lying, but you can actually say to yourself, I'm excited about this. rather than saying I'm scared of this, we can say I'm excited about this. So when you're standing at the top of a cliff about to do a base jump, you can say I'm really excited about this.
Squeaky voice.
Yeah. I think I'd be lying to myself at that point, and I'd know
Yeah.
it. But we can, some of the smaller stuff, which isn't quite as dramatic, we can go, do you know what? I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Get the same feeling, but it just puts us on the front foot rather than the back foot.
Definitely, and it is that whole flipping it and the self-talk and what we tell ourselves, isn't it? Often there's an image which we see on social media and things about someone standing on the edge of a cliff, and what if I fall? And it's like, but what if you fly? And I love that. There's two ways to go, isn't there? And what if it turns out the right way? That would be fantastic. And what if you've never tried and you just don't know? For me, I completely agree with you. It's worse to have regrets than to have not tried. Nerves are good. We hear that from performers, don't we? That they say they need that adrenaline, that excitement to get them on stage. And a lot of that could be something that would stop people doing that. But if we can use it in a positive way and allow it to drive us and take us out of our comfort zone and try different things, the results are, endless, aren't they?
Yeah, slight tangent here, but an interesting tangent, I think. I'm listening to a podcast at the moment called Philosophize This. It's a really great podcast. There's like 180 episodes. It's on philosophy, and they were talking about this guy Stephen West talks about different philosophers, but one of the ones he was talking about the other day was around consciousness is nothing, and I won't expand on that because I could go on for hours on it. But it was talking about that standing at the edge of a cliff, and this philosopher, I can't remember the philosopher's name now, but they said, you know what, when you stand at the edge of a cliff and you feel all of those nerves and fear, it's not actually the fear of falling off the cliff. It's the fear that you could jump off the cliff if you chose to, because you have free choice in everything you do. And actually, what your fear is that you could jump if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Wow, that's getting a bit deep. Anyway, back to self-doubt. So I think maybe bringing that point to some kind of conclusion, Becky. From a leadership point of view, we've obviously got ourselves. We have to manage ourselves. We're not an iceberg. We can use other people to support us with it, but we have to think about how we manage our own self-doubts and our own fears of failure. And there were several points in there we've talked about that we could use to help manage our own personal situation. But when we're running a team and we've got other people around us, then it's going to be slightly different, isn't it? Because we can't control them. We don't want to control them. We just want to present an environment where they feel comfortable, where they feel they can fail. So some of this maybe comes back to the environment we create, doesn't it? Which is, what we had a sign above the door in my team's room once, which was celebrate success, because everyone's really quick to jump on everything that goes wrong, but very shy and reticent to kind of say when things go right. So we had this big thing above the door saying celebrate success ! And we used to make a point of, in our weekly meetings, having to bring forward things that had gone right as well, rather than what had gone wrong. And we celebrated it. People get embarrassed. I tried to bring in this thing called the bell of success, where literally it sat on the table in the middle of the room, and like if something went really well, everyone had the right to ding the bell and go like town crier style, oh yay, oh yay. I've just picked up a new client which fits in with our perfect prospect profile, happy days. It didn't work because everyone was very reserved in English and no one wanted to ring the bell and celebrate something that they'd done. But it's okay, that was a bit of an extreme thing, and it didn't really work in our team because everyone was too bashful. But it started to create the drumbeat, which is it's okay to win and it's okay to fail as well. If someone wanted to go, hey, I've had a learning experience, ding, 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 I've had a learning experience, this went horrendously wrong. It's like everyone would have clapped them and gone, great, If you're not failing, you're not growing, you're not developing, so that's fine.
Absolutely. And I think, celebrating success is such an important thing. Someone once said to me, or I saw it on a presentation or something, it's only bragging if it's not true. And so, if it's true, own it and celebrate it and tell people about it. And there's ways and means of doing that, I know. But whether it's as an individual or as a team, you've got to take those moments, haven't you? We've just got past our financial year end. certainly said to the team, just for a moment, just reflect on what we've achieved, because that will drive us as much as anything. But equally, just understand what great things we have achieved, and don't be shy to just celebrate that, or indeed miss it, because we're so busy and we move on to the next thing so quickly. And that's the sort of thing that perhaps will drive us. And the next time we feel the fear, the self-doubt, go, actually, we can do this because we've done it before, or we've proven that we can meet challenging targets, turn things around, improve things. So often experience helps us manage our self-doubt, doesn't it? And I think there's when you're young, perhaps you have less self-doubt because you lack experience of things not going right, and you might be a bit more gung-ho. But actually, as you get older, if you use your experiences in a positive way, that can really, really help you. So lots about how we can inspire and lead our teams and give them permission, empower them to feel it's okay to fail as well as succeed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and let's create that environment with our teams where people want to take the shot. They want the basketball to take the shot. And do you know what? It's not they don't care if they miss the shot. It's the fact that they're not afraid to take the shot. That's the environment that I've always tried to create within my team. I want everyone to take the shot, and I suppose that comes down then to, and we're not covering leadership style today, but this very much comes back to leadership style, doesn't it? The personal opinion based on my anecdotal experience of a 30-year career, the more command and control you have, the less likely people are to pick up the ball and take the shot, because they're always going to wait for someone more senior than them to take the shot. And eventually, before you know it, if you're the most senior person in the team, you've got to take all the shots because everyone's passing it up the chain. So I think this links in heavily with leadership style as well. And we have done a podcast on leadership styles before, and it's probably one which is worth touching on again in the future. But I think take a look at yourself in the mirror. What sort of leader are you? Is your style going to create an environment where people will take that shot?
Or are you constantly like, go, no, it's for me to do that? And then go, well, fine. I think it's such an important thing. You want people to feel like they're part of the team. They've got a contribution to make, and you're going to let them run with it in whatever form it takes.
Yeah, and I'm going to just read a quote out now, which I know I read before we started the podcast, so I'm going to get it in. It's Henry David Thoreau from his book or his essay, Civil Disobedience. And the quote he started with in it was, that government is best which governs least. And it comes back to that, doesn't it? If we govern less, then people are more likely to take the shot. Excellent. Okay. So lots around the fear of failure and what we can do as leaders ourselves, and how we can help create an environment for our teams to not fear that failure, but actually look at it as opportunity, and step forward to the plate when we need them to. Okay, so moving on to the second one then, was the fear of success, which I think at first instance people are going to be going, well, why on earth would you be worried about succeeding? And I think there's a whole myriad of reasons why people fear success. And I'm sure we're going to bring in some personal anecdotes here, Becky, because not blowing our own trumpets, but we've had successes in our careers. In 30 years, the law of average says you've got to have some success, hasn't it? It's like even a broken clock is right twice a day. So in 30 years, I've been right a few times, because I could be a broken clock. Who knows? Why may we have a fear of success? Well, one of the areas could be, how do you maintain it? I was listening to, I used to subscribe to Blinkist, which used to give you the snapshots of books, and I can't remember the name of the book now, but the crux of it was competition can be really bad, which is something I'd never considered before. I've always been a survival of the fittest, cream will come to the top, all that sort of old stuff, but I'd never actually considered the flip side of that. And what they were saying is, if you get a competitive environment, the people who lose feel disenfranchised, they feel down. You're never going to get the best performance out of them because they just don't feel great about themselves. The people who win, whatever winning might mean in that context, once they've reached the top, they become more focused on how do they maintain their position at the top, as opposed to doing all of the good stuff that got them to the top in the first place. So you end up creating an environment potentially with success where you've got people who try not to fall down as opposed to pushing forward, and you've got people who feel disenfranchised because actually they feel useless, to paraphrase. So that's one area where success can actually can lead to a fear, because people are like, actually, if I become successful, how do I maintain it? Therefore, maybe I don't want to attain success, whatever that might mean. And I can definitely align with that. So within the business, one of my roles for about 8 years was I was head of our business and private team, and we had success. We had a good game plan, we had a good vision, we had some very clear objectives, and we moved towards them, and we smashed it. We were doing really well. But once we'd reached that point, every time we got to the end of a financial year and the next year started again, and it was like, back to square one, you'd slipped all. It's like snakes and ladders, I'd slipped all the way down a snake, having got to the top of a ladder, and then with the team, and this was a team effort, but then you're looking back up the mountain and you're taking a deep breath, going, I don't know if we can achieve it again this year. I don't know if we can outperform what we did last year. So self-doubt around success started to creep in, and I started to doubt, did I have the ability as a leader? Did I have the energy and enthusiasm to throw back into it for another year? And this hamster wheel went on for like 8 years. And and where that journey ended, Becky. You then took over as head of B&P, and I moved on to our board. And do you know what? It was a massive relief to go onto the board, where our managing partner heads the board, and I'm just a board member. Well, I'm not just a board member. Hey, I'm a board member, man. But I'm just a board member, where I don't have the ultimate decision. I'm not ultimately responsible anymore. And that was just such a huge to not have to. It was great delivering success, and it was a massive buzz for a period of time. Once you'd smashed it and you could share everything with the team, you got some instantaneous gratification off it. And it wasn't just instantaneous. It was over a long period, but it was intermingled with the fear of failure. Can I maintain this success? And suddenly, being able to step away from that was like a breath of fresh air, and I didn't fully appreciate it until I was able to take the step back. So I can really see how fear of success can become a real barrier for leaders.
I completely agree, and thanks for handing that baton over to me and giving me that fear instead. But it is very much about how if you achieve the success, what's next for me? It's like, okay, does everyone expect more? Is it just keep giving more and more and more? Because that's now the new normal almost. That's the new benchmark. If you get there, what else is there maybe for some people? We've talked before about Olympians, for example, who they're on this 4-year rolling training program, aren't they? And if they achieve what they set out to achieve, the crash, the what's next, what else is there to go for, must be absolutely massive. And I think constantly having those goals that lead up to the main goal is the key thing, isn't it? We've spoken about this before. I know, what's your main goal, but what are the things that are going to get you there, and celebrate success along the way, so that each bit, and also then you can repeat those, and that they're fundamentally built into whatever it is, your team, how you do things, and you feel more secure that yes, you can achieve it again, because you've put great systems, processes, fundamental, the foundations are there. If you're constantly just getting to the goal and then crashing again, you haven't got anything that you can build back on. You're starting from scratch again, and that's a tough thing to pick yourself up from, probably, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you mentioned the Olympics there and Olympians, and we'll put a link in the show notes. There was a documentary by HBO called Weight of Gold, and it was a whole documentary on that very topic, which is, these people had such a laser guided focus on this 4-year cycle that once they got to the end of it, it was like they went off the edge of a precipice. There was nothing. It wasn't about the journey, it was about the destination for them. And once destination had been achieved, whether it meant getting a gold, or even the people who didn't have success at the Olympics in terms of medal count, their 4-year focus was still purely on the pinnacle that was the Olympics. So it was just a precipice. They were falling off it, and there was huge anxiety and depression and suicide issues with Olympians, because it was just this massive void. And and I get that. It's different. We do not have the same level of laser guided focus that an Olympian would have, but it's still this annual targets, whatever it might be. Most leaders this will resonate with them, and we don't get the balance, do we? We become so fixated on what success means that it becomes incredibly narrow. So for an Olympian, ultimate success is a gold medal. Within our business, yes, there's a lot of softer KPIs around people development, etc. But ultimately, we have a very big drive, as most businesses do, around financial success as well. So we get quite narrow in our definition of what success means, and the narrower that definition gets, I think the less freedom we have. So I would say that at times in my career, I and this is all self-imposed. This is no one else imposing this on me. I have felt less freedom because I felt more constrained, because it's almost like I'm in such a narrow set of like rail tracks to get to what I think success is being measured on. It narrows down, if you're not careful, your life experience as well. So I think people would look at that. Other people will look at that and go, do you know what? I don't want to feel that constrained. I want to have a level of freedom, and I'm going to define success in different ways. So I think there's very much a piece around how do you define success and what does it really mean, and what does freedom mean? Because the other thing which is perhaps relevant here, we've mentioned on this podcast before, that the late great Trevor Moawad, his book, he interviewed a guy who, I think he was a basketball player, an American, an NBL level basketball player, and he basically said that if you're going to be elite at anything you do in life, then freedom of choice is an illusion, because there's certain decisions that you have no choice over if you want to achieve that level of success and that goal. So for example, for him, he was saying, actually, I can't go out and have a beer in the week. It's no choice. If I have a choice, yes or no, but if I choose yes, then I won't be able to maintain my career as an elite sports person into my late 30s, early 40s, whatever it was. So we have an illusion of choice, and I think that happens with business leaders as well. We think as leaders we have a lot of freedom, but if we want true success, whatever that might mean, then we have less freedom, because we are limited with the choices we can make. The wrong choices are going to lead to the wrong outcomes. And if we want the right outcomes to lead to success, then we have restraint on what we can do. So I think and this is fine. We all have to make sacrifices in every aspect of life to get what we want to achieve, because you can't do everything. Something has to give. And I think very much that can lead to fear of success as well. People are worried about, and what will this mean for my life? And one of the things I've definitely seen through my career, my circle of friends has changed. As my career has moved in a direction, it's distanced me. It has distanced me from some of my friends. Not because I'm choosing to, but your paths go in different directions. So I think people look at it and go, well, I don't know if I want those kind of changes to happen in my life. So there's another area potentially where fear of success can kick in, because people are like, I like my life, I like my friend circle, I don't want stuff to change.
It's certainly. It depends on your motivators as well, doesn't it? In terms of, if you're purely financially driven, that's one thing, but you do need to think about the repercussions of that. And like you say, is that going to change your friendship groups? Is it going to change where you holiday and what you do socially, et cetera, compared to what they are able to do? And, life would be great if everyone came along on the journey at the same rate with you, wouldn't it? I often think, if you won the lottery, would it actually be that great? Because unless everyone around you has won the lottery that you want to be spending time with, that's not going to give you the freedom that you want. I appreciate your immediate family members, etc., would benefit as well. But unless you're going to share it with everyone and take them all with you, it's going to make things different. So I think people need to understand, what is success for them, exactly what you said, but also what it could mean. And not be just on that train ploughing towards it and be oblivious to the fact that actually, how might this change me? And is that great? Is that positive? Is that what I want? And I'm up for that? Or are there aspects to this that I'm not going to be comfortable with? And I think that's absolutely where that fear can come in, and that we then do question it, don't we? So, yeah, really, really big one, fear of success.
Yeah. So I think that probably the takeaway, the thing that I would probably, if I could, one of the questions we say to ourselves, you could go back and ask an 18-year-old, advice for an 18-year-old self.
Yeah.
If I could go back and talk to myself at 18, or probably even 28, actually, I would say, define what success means to you, Mark, but think about it in a wider context.
Mm.
I don't think it would have changed what I did. I don't think it would have changed the career choice I made, but it would have changed. It would have taken pressure off me in terms of what I was deeming as success. My definition of success was too narrow, and that became constraining. So I think that the one thing that I would challenge all leaders listening to this today is, when you're out walking your dog, out on your bike, whatever it is you're doing, just give yourself some mental space to define what success really means to you. Because I think the more nuanced you get with your definition of success, the more it can help with the self-doubt and the fear of success. Because I think if you know what it is and it's balanced, it's not going to hold the same levels of fear.
Yeah, no, so it's the why again, isn't it? Why do you aspire to whatever it might be? And be comfortable with that, be conscious of why you're doing it, and keep checking yourself against it.
Yeah, excellent. So let's move on to number 3, Becky, which is the fear of judgment of others.
Yeah, so this picks up on what we were just talking about how success might change us. We worry about that aspect. And then, of course, taking it that step further is, on what are others going to think of me? And whether we're successful or whether we're not in a particular thing, we're worried about what others will say. We're always worried about judgment. And as much as some of us at times might go, I don't care what others think, we do. It's hardwired into us, as we have said, these things are there, and it's how we manage them, isn't it? So I think, we all have an inherent fear of what others may think. It's how we manage that. I think in some ways that can be a useful check. It can be dismissive to say, I don't care what others think. And you do need to care what others think to an extent. You need to be, a reasonable, caring person as much as anything. You can't blunder through life regardless. But it can also be a check, can't it? On, actually, am I just being complete lunatic here and driving forwards on something that is really not rational, not right, not appropriate?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is hardwired in, isn't it? I mean, this takes us back to our hunter-gatherer days again. It feels like we're on an anthropological podcast at times here, Becky. But the judgment of others was so important, because if we upset our tribe, which would be anything from 50 to 150 people back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers, if you were cast out of your tribe, you would die. It's as simple as that. As a human being, we could not survive on our own. We'd either starve or we'd be eaten by something. So judgment of others is really hardwired into us again. But again, it's coming back to that context, isn't it? Which is, if we're cast out by our tribe now, we're unlikely to die like we would have been, 30,000 years ago. But it's almost like, for most people, why are they worried about judgment of others and being cast out? Well, it's like, I'm going to lose my job. I suspect that's a massive fear driver for most people, that they start then having self-doubt about, well, if my boss doesn't think I'm doing a great job, then I'm going to lose my job. We talked about like running scenarios. And then if I lose my job, it means I can't pay my mortgage. And if I can't pay my mortgage, I'm going to have my house repossessed. And then my family are going to go, oh, you're such a loser, Mark. You can't even pay your mortgage. And then my family are going to leave me. And, oh, my God, it's just all going to go to, to pop. And I can't be the only person who ever runs those kind of scenarios. So I think the judgment of others is hardwired into us back from our ancestral days. However, we roll it forward to the year 2023. And for most of us, we're not gonna lose our jobs because of something we do. We communicate with people. We have an environment where people want to help you develop. They want you to do well, because, not being funny, but if my team do well, it's great, because I get to glow and go, oh, they're fantastic. These are they're not my biological children, but they're my earth children. I feel really like protective of them, and I reflect in their glory, and also it means it helps me pay my mortgage as well. So we're all in this together. I don't want anyone to lose their job. So I think the judgment of others, yes, it has historical roots, but we need to put it in context of today, don't we? Which is, most people are rooting for you. It's a bit like doing the best man speech. I've done 3 in my life. I've been privileged to do 3. Each time it's like, it's like one of the worst things I've ever done. Talk about
Really?
self-doubt and fear kicking in then, But before the meal, everyone's going, oh, don't worry, everyone's rooting for you. Everyone wants you to do really well. And you're thinking, I don't believe you, I don't believe you. Even though they do really want you to succeed, you're still worrying about the judgment of others, even when you're about to stand up and deliver something for one of your best friends, So this kicks in every aspect of our life, whether it's in a leadership position or a personal position. But people are it's either staggering indifference where they really don't care. They're walking past you, they don't care. Or if they do care, 99% of the time, they're going to be rooting for you. They want you to succeed. They don't want you to fail. So there is really little need in the modern world, apart from inside the world we inhabit in our heads, to really worry about the judgment of others.
Yeah. It's that saying, isn't it? What people think of you is really none of your business. And that's something worth remembering sometimes. But equally, as we've said, it's only natural to care what others think, and of course we do seek approval. We seek affirmation of what we're doing is the right thing, and it's taking us and our family and friends and the team on the right journey and in the right direction. So there's an element of you've got to be self-aware, and you've got to be conscious of everyone around you. Of course you have, but you can't let it hold you back. And often it does, that basic fear of, what are they going to think? And it comes back to the first point, doesn't it? Is it we're worried what they're going to think if we fail? Is it we're worried what they're going to think if we succeed? And like we said, your friendship groups might change with success. And so that can hold us back in terms of, what are people going to say? They're going to think that I'm a big I am, and, they can't hang around with me anymore. Yeah, constant self-talk, ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah. And one of the things that I've certainly done in this area is I've looked at who am I most worried about from the judgment of others, because I think judgment of others is massive. I probably don't care what 7.999 billion people on this planet think, but there's a handful of people who I really do care what they think, and I'm worried about how they're going to judge me. And I think identifying who those people are has been really liberating and important for me. And I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast before. One of the people in my lives who I used to worry about judgment of others most was my mum, because I guess this is just like a growing up thing, being a son or whatever. And I would always want my mum to give me approval for things, and this went on way into my adult life. I just wanted my mum to say, that's a good idea, Mark. Well done. I approve. I always wanted. I should have bought my mum one of those stamp things. Those ink stampers. So I could have gone with a bit of paper and said, "This is something I'm about to do," and she'd have gone tick, confirmed, approved. And that would have been like, yay! It would have made my day. And my emotional state, I allowed my mum's judgment to completely mess with my own emotional state. I love my mum to bits. We have a great relationship. Our relationship improved when I moved out of home, I have to say, because we're probably way too similar. But this went on until probably my late 20s. Everything that I did, even when me and Glenda were married at this point. Now I'm a full grown up. I'm married and everything, but I'm still wanting my mum to approve things for me, because it's that judgment of others thing. I can't think of many other people on this planet who, I guess I do care about them, but in terms of degree of caring, it was my mum. She was she was sitting up there on top of the pile on this one. And I suddenly one day I thought to myself, this is just crazy. I don't need my mum's approval. I'm 29 years old at that point. I think it was 29. I'm 29. I don't need my mum to approve stuff. Yeah, I care about my mum's emotions and feelings, but I'm not going to allow myself to be dictated by someone else's approval on stuff. And it doesn't mean I don't still want my mum's approval, but it doesn't dictate my drumbeat anymore. So I think one of the things, and that's a personal one, there's been people in the business before, when I first started at Larkins, the managing partner, who was Bob Rose, I worked for Bob. And for some reason, I thought he didn't like me. Bob's probably going to phone in the show at some point and go, "You're right, Mark. I thought you were complete little, whatever." But I was making this story up in my head. And it was only when I chose to change how I thought Bob thought about me if you follow that one. At that point, suddenly the relationship with Bob completely changed, and he didn't do anything different. It was all down to me. So running those sort of looking in a mirror and getting the wrong reflection can be like really dangerous. So I think for all of the leaders out there, and I'm sure most people have gone through this, but for me, it's about almost narrowing it down to who are those people who it has a disproportionate impact on your emotional state. You know, who causes that level of self-doubt in you, and then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, completely agree. I think it depends on our role in relation to that individual, doesn't it? And their role to us. So you were talking there about your mum. I had exactly the same with my dad. I remember saying to my dad, I'm going to buy a car, but can you just come and let me know what you think, if it's okay? And he was like, I know nothing about cars. I was like, I know, but if you say it's okay, then it'll be okay. And he was like, literally turned up, looked at it and went, yeah. And yeah, I mean,
Kick the tyres.
Yeah, he
honk the
probably didn't even
horn.
do
Yeah,
that.
it
He
works,
probably didn't
yeah.
even get out of his car. He just went, yeah, it's fine. But it didn't matter because he was my dad and I'd always held him in that way. Now, sadly, my dad hasn't been with us for about 12 years now. So I miss that hugely. And I regret that he hasn't seen the success that I have gone on to personally achieve, you know. But equally, I do think that I would have always measured myself against what does my dad think? And maybe there's been an element of freeing me from that as well. And that it's, you know, that was one aspect that's been taken away. And I miss him desperately. You know, he was absolutely someone that I would just bounce stuff off. And you need that. But if you allow that person to stop you or slow you down, that can be really quite damaging, can't it? So you do, and often the parent-child relationship is like that, and you have to mature and grow, and like you say, age 29, finally go, I don't really need my mum to say it's okay. But you know, for everyone it's different, and often for people that will never go away when it's that particular relationship. But I think thinking about what role we have with other people, you know, parent-child, I as a parent with my child, you know, that's always going to matter to me what she does think, particularly if she's now coming to be an adult herself. But there's other people where I'm like, actually, it doesn't matter because I don't impact your life enough, you don't impact mine enough, so it's okay. So yeah, completely agree. That conscious thinking about who are those people, understand the why, and keep gradually chipping away at that if you can.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Becky. So that brings us to the end of today's show. I think we've done a massive amount of talking around self-doubt here, and we've covered 3 big areas as we see them, which is the fear of failure, the fear of success, and the fear of judgment of others. And just leaving you with maybe the top tips around that. I think the fear of failure, we talked around creating an environment for you as a leader, looking at how you do things, what you're worried about failing on. Are you prepared to take that shot? You know, and then we also talked about how you create the environment for your team where they are going to take the shot. They're not going to rely on you taking it all the while. And then we started to drift into sort of leadership styles, command and control, how you create freedom for the teams to express themselves without the fear of failure. We then moved on to the fear of success, which at first sight looked a bit strange, but we then said, well, actually, you know, people can worry about how it's going to change them, how people will react to them differently. Is it a destination rather than a journey issue? You know, is this an Olympic 4-year cycle where suddenly there's a big cliff edge? You know, are we worried about that? So there's a lot to think around success. How narrowly we maybe define it. Could we widen it out? Does it make us feel trapped? Could we become more free around achieving success as well and make it more sustainable in the long term? And the final one was judgment of others. And we laid our souls bare there, Becky. We talked about sort of personal relationships, the people, narrowing it down to the people in your life who you really do worry about what they think about you, and then understand why and what you can do to maybe change that dynamic. And I would put money on 99% of the time it's about you changing something, not them changing something. So hopefully you've got some great value out of today. So anything we mentioned of interest will be in the show notes, and there'll be links to the Weight of Gold documentary. If you don't already do so, if you could follow us and rate us 5-star, it really helps other people find the show, so that would be great. And finally, a massive thank you to our sponsors, Larkin Gowan. Without them, this show wouldn't be possible. So take a look at their website to see how their team of experts can help you and your business. And that just leaves us to say, have a great week, enjoy yourself, and boost your health, wealth, and self.